Okay, now we have already a smooth transition to our, believe it or not, last activity here on stage. We have a final discussion round with 3 ladies that will talk about this question, how complicated it is to preserve that kind of art, and which different problems occur to save this kind of digital or analog media art for the future. Julia Staudach is the moderator of this last discussion round, and she holds a degree in digital art from the University of Applied Arts in Salzburg. She is from Austria. And she's also co-founder of the artists cooperation Kryptowiener. They will also be on stage tomorrow. And she is a curator. She is a member of the curator team of the Museum Francisco Carolinum in Linz, and is also responsible for maintaining and expanding the NFT collection of Upper Austria. Sabine Himmelsbach is an art historian. She has been director of exhibitions at ZKM in former times. Now she is the director of HEC in Basel. This is the House of Electronic Arts. She's a writer and lecturer as well, and she is dedicated to topics related to media art and digital culture. And last but not least, Margit Rosen. You already know her from this morning from ZKM, and her big expertise in conservation and restoration of media art. She will complement this round, and to be honest, I'm very honored that you 3 will finally end our very exhausting day. So please come to stage.
Okay, thank you all for coming. Thanks, Susanne, for organizing this. It's really cool, and I'm very grateful. Events like this really help spreading the word, and making all the pioneers come together is a really special thing, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and thanks for inviting us. I wanted to say that the title of our panel this round is a question whether museums are underperformers in the conservation of generative art. And I think with the group on stage right now, we can clearly answer this question with a no. Because, yeah, ZKM is on the forefront of, as we just heard before, preserving and digital art and generative art, and making it accessible, as well as the HEC in Basel, which also has a collection of digital art, generative art, and not only NFTs, but various kinds of forms of this new form of art. It's not that new, but anyway, yeah. So maybe, Sabine, you could start by telling us in what way you are, like, what's your way of preserving this generative art so far?
Yeah, thank you, Julia. Maybe I start to make clear that our collection is focusing only on Swiss media art, which is due to our government funding, unfortunately. Because our program is very international, so a lot of people always think that we can collect internationally as well. When I started my job at HEK, House of Electronic Arts, I was really thinking, how can I make a difference? Because a lot of Swiss digital video art, like Pippi Lottirist, is in so many collections, and for me that didn't make sense that we need to collect it as well. So our focus is clearly on software and net-based artistic practice. So the earliest works we have come from the 1980s, but it's really more net art starting in the zeros of this century. And there we also collect, maybe we can talk about this a bit later, we are collecting works that when we collected them, they were sort of already relics and not fully functioning anymore. But I thought it's important that we as an institution make an effort to keep them in the collection, because they have been important works in the history of Swiss media art. One example, a piece called Trace Noise by a group LAN from Zurich. that was dealing with identity issues or fake identities, and the way that I call it a relic or a ruin is that like legally the things that were possible at the time are no longer possible today. But I think we have to, it was an important issue at the time to discuss it in art, so we try to document it as good as possible. And saying that we are focusing on software and net-based artistic practice, of course, it was a natural step for us to also collect NFTs, and we also started to do a series of NFT editions. Yeah, not so many very well thought through, but for example, we did one with Leander Herzog, who is working with doing generative NFTs, or also Mario Klingemann, who is here in the audience as well. Maybe I leave it as that.
Thank you. Yeah, Margit, ZKM, as we already heard before, is playing an important role here too, and maybe you're more internationally focused and not only on German art. I think you're having a little bit of a bigger picture in mind here.
Yeah, we're really collecting art from all over the world, though, of course, as this collection was started in the late 1980s, early 1990s, it mirrors, of course, the geography of media art funding, which is to say we have a lot of artists from Germany, Austria, Japan, Korea, Canada, and the United States. But we are, for quite some time now, we're taking care that we are really also representing other parts of the world. But what I wanted to say is we have more, I think that 220 complex digital artworks, so computer-based installations. This makes only 2% of our collection, but it takes like 95% of our funding for restoration and our time. Having complex digital artworks, like I'm not talking about computer-generated film or images or sculptures, but really on installations which run in real time, is like having a cybernetic zoo. Like all these little beings you constantly have to look after. It takes an enormous amount of attention, and as like you can forget a painting for 10 years in storage, which regularly happens, but if you receive a computer-based artwork and you do not immediately start to document it, but you leave it for 7 years in storage, you might only find some empty hard drives, and it's totally gone. So the incredible fragility of our current material culture, and I don't have to say digital, but the electronic material culture is really incredible challenge to preserving our contemporary art production. And I always try to or do this Gedankenexperiment, this thought experiment. What will happen if we won't have, or will we have the case that in 200 years, some archaeologists, what will they find? Will they find just broken electronic devices? Will they still find function in artworks? And what will be their explanations? Didn't we have enough resources? Didn't we have the expertise? Or didn't we think that this kind of work is worth putting in some effort?
Yeah, I think that's a very important point here, because the common misperception is that like putting something on the blockchain or having it digital, it makes it like forever, but still, as you said, the medias are changing and we have to keep up with that and preserve that. Yeah, so basically it's a lot of effort and work, but it's interesting to hear that it's like 99% of your funding going into this. So this is a little bit crazy, actually.
Well, it's just painting, sculptures. They survive without that we have to pay greater attention to them. Like the life cycle of digital electronic art is just very specific, which doesn't mean that we shouldn't put in all efforts, because, I mean, we are a society which, I mean, we constantly are addressed to as like a digitized society. And what if, looking back, the only thing that will survive will be oil painting, marble sculpture, and they will think, why did that society maybe not manage to preserve the works in that technology that marked that society?
But I think that's a very important topic, and it's also that, you know, with all those works, every work is so specific that there is not one strategy that works for all. And I think it's still, after all those years, it's this lack of awareness in policymakers that actually the needs of conservation, that often, especially in our case, the acquisition is not the main, financially not the highest investment that we make, but it is kind of like keeping the work alive. That is a continuous challenge.
We talked a little bit before, and you said that you're facing certain problems with software being still under protection, like it can't be altered or used anymore, but it's still like the patent of the company is still on. So what are the issues that you are actually facing with preserving this kind of art?
That was actually Margit, but we discussed earlier, what do we collect? Do we need to collect also the software? And it's an important one because HEK is a very small institution. And I think that's a topic that maybe we can also address later on as kind of like how can we connect better for a smaller institution like we are, this siloed knowledge. We have a conservator who is a specialist, but I think we need partners, you know, to tackle the problems that we are all facing. But maybe, Margit, you can answer to the software case.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we have these curious cases that an artist had a license, which was licensed directly to one specific computer. And normally it's no problem to replace hardware. One fails, it's not made for eternity, we replace it with something else. But of course, if it's linked to the serial number, and with our old works, of course, the companies don't exist anymore. You can't renew the license, so we hack the thing. So on the new computer, we write a little program that simulates the serial number so that the software thinks it's still on the old machine. But what's really an issue, not only for us, but I mean, this is that there is no good regulation for abandoned software which is not longer sold. I mean, it's still copyrighted. What we do is, in that sense, also sometimes semi-legal. And if I would have a great wish, then that would be that there would be an international agreement that if software gets out of being on the market, or if big software companies close down, that they have to give all their documentation and licenses to something like the Library of Congress, so that it becomes a common good. Because if we want to keep the digital artworks in the long run, but I mean that's also true for everybody using software, also for architects, then it would be wonderful that if we had a long-term access to these tools. Yeah.
So we basically, all of our, the institutions were basically all facing the same issues and problems, and what we also discussed before, it would be nice to have some kind of a network of museums and institutions working together and provide the informations and everything we need to also make it public and accessible to the public. So maybe we should think in this direction and become a network.
No, this is so important, and we actually have been working on it, and I have to look it up because the name is a bit complex. We had 30 partners from 19 European countries have applied for the COST program. with the project EMBARK, which stands for European Media and Born Digital Art Conservation and Knowledge Network, to really bring together connecting stakeholders and also work intersectional collaborations with academia, but also with industry and so on. We did not get it, unfortunately, but the group decided that we make another application for the fall. But I think these projects, will connect us because, as we said, we all have the same or similar problems. We have this siloed knowledge, and how can we overcome that through that kind of networks? So I hope that we will we will get it in the second run.
And already there's a very nice culture of sharing among the digital art restaurators, and actually everybody, it's a very small circle worldwide, and everybody knows each other, but it would have been a possibility to meet more often. But what we have discussed also in this context was, of course, the question of education, because where can you study how to handle these software-based artworks? A lot of people come from sometimes from computing science, sometimes from the few educational programs that exist, but then our colleagues from the universities that train restaurators said, well, I don't think it's responsible to train people on restoring digital artworks if the museums have no positions then to hire those people. And so we have a kind of a strange hen and egg problem, because I think it's a very, very bad idea that only a few public institutions collect digital electronic art. I mean, it's absurd, as if there would be only like 3 museums who would collect painting or oil painting, because then you do not have this diversity, this variety represented in the future. The thing is, I understand why also private collectors and public institutions do not collect net art, web-based art, and digital art, because they don't know how to preserve it in the long time. But of course, if the museums do not have a significant amount of work, they don't see the need why they should hire somebody who is capable to do this very demanding process of documentation on the moment of acquisition. So this is, I think, why we should much more also collaborate, and also in helping also to educate restaurators, so that at least the basics can be done in an acquisition. Restoring then works is still another step.
So there's a future job that's just beginning to emerge here, the digital archival restoration thing. Another thing that is, generative art isn't only digital. We have seen lots of examples where machines have been used to create the art. What do you think that it is also important for us as institutions to also collect these machines and preserve them, or is just the output of importance?
I mean, I think it's also due to practical reasons, because we just don't have the storage facilities. We focus more on emulation as a preservation practice, to be quite honest. But of course, if you have historical works, then you also have to maybe collect some technical equipment to make it run. But I strongly believe in emulation.
Well, we have, because we have these installations, sometimes emulation is difficult with all the peripheral equipment, because the emulations are not complete. Our strategy at the moment is that we try to keep the historical condition as long as possible, because also it makes it different in its appearance, also in its symbolic meaning, because technology itself has a history and a symbolic meaning, which contributes to the overall meaning of the artwork. But of course, in the moment, we cannot replace a historical hardware by the same model because it's nowhere available anymore. Then we will have to change it, but we prefer, because if you think you can protect your computer-based work by keeping it in storage, it doesn't work. It's more safe for an artwork to be exhibited. It's the best protection for an artwork because then you see if there are any slight failures. So we prefer that if this is ever the case, the artworks will die gracefully in public. And I don't know if we already have a mourning ritual before one day will be forced to change its body. But I have to say there, the concept of variable media, which has been established in restorative circles for a very long time, allows for changing the body if it is still the core of the artwork is kept. And that, of course, are very individual decisions which we always try to take together with the artists. Of course, the longer the responsibility goes over to the museum, but as long as the artists are around, and they are very often much more willing to exchange everything for a better technology than our conservators and curators who would like to keep it exactly the way it was.
But maybe I add just to that, because we have one artist in our collection that I know is also in yours, Mark Lee, and in his practice, he versions his own artwork. So in a way, we as a museum are left behind to migrate the work because he already does it. So in that particular practice, kind of you have only documentation of what you have, because if you have the version 1 and he himself is migrating and calling it a new work with the version 2, you know, it's also a strategy that artists are versioning their own works.
I see we have, this watch shows me 4 minutes left. Maybe I ask the two of you, what's your dream of a future? What's the optimum environment for us institutions? What would your wishes be for the near future? What should change? What should happen? What do we need?
It's so simple: more space, more money. But maybe, you know, maybe also thinking of the future. Tomorrow we have many presentations also on AI. Maybe also to see, you know, how we can, what role AI can play in optimizing workflows, and I think it was already showcased in the archive project at ZKM. So maybe there are some leaps to be made as well in the future, in a positive way with AI.
Of course, my question is also we need more money to be able to hire more of these very passionate people which are around, who in a very obsessive way are willing to migrate a program from a Silicon Graphics from 1992. And maybe that's also a call out to people who are into computing science, who know a lot about hardware and software, because this is the knowledge that's always missing, and those are the people very hard to get, because they can earn so much more money in the industry. But what always comforts me is that again and again there are people who prefer love or money. They choose love and are ready to, for rather small money, work on things they love. And so I think what unites us all is really this fascination of this very, very, very fragile form of art.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, what we tickled before with the network of museums collaborating, and maybe we find a way to do that and incentivize those smart minds out there to join us and help us, and maybe we can build such a network that in the future makes this very fragile form of art accessible to everyone and also helps preserving it even better than we are doing right now.
Yeah, and really keep on raising awareness for policymakers on the fragility of digital art and that they have to change policies and be active.
And we're not alone. The whole game community is with us, and they're already helping us a lot with their tool, which we're really thankful for. So we're not alone, but as you said, there has been a little bit more consciousness of how fragile these works are.
Thank you very much.